Welcome back to The Art of Adventure. This is episode 163 with Travis Sherry. The Art of Adventure is the podcast that helps you travel the world, run your business, and embark on an epic quest. I'm your host, lead explorer and guide Derek Loudermilk. Head over to derekloudermilk.com to check out the show notes for this episode and sign up for your free guide of the 10 ways to make money online while traveling the world. One of the things we do with this podcast is bring you stories of how you can run a business while traveling the world. If that's something you have been thinking about for a while, it's probably time for you to sign up with a business strategy session with me. I'm offering 30-minute sessions free for listeners of this show. You can sign up by sending me an email, derek@derekloudermilk.com, and I'll send you back a link to my calendar so you can book a spot and we'll go from there. You can also go to the coaching page at derekloudermilk.com to sign up. For today's episode, we've got Travis Sherry on, and he's the host of the #1 travel podcast on iTunes, Extra Pack of Peanuts. He runs the blog of the same name and also the Location Indie community and podcast. So there's a lot of background and information on him out there. So I'm going to try to go a little bit deeper today. And he is really one of the best people to teach how to travel more for less money because of his experience as an actual teacher. So in this interview, we get insight from him into the travel trends that he's seeing this year and location-independent business trends that he's been observing. You're going to learn about the chocolate travel hack, Travis's worst accommodation ever, running a travel community, and a lot more. So obviously, he's a great podcaster and he's a great storyteller, very enthusiastic. I think you guys are really going to dig this interview with some fresh insights from Travis. So without further ado, here is Travis Sherry. Welcome back to The Art of Adventure. I'm here today with Travis Sherry. Welcome to the show, Travis.
Awesome. Thank you for having me on today, Derek. It's fun to get to chat with you again.
Yes, we did an interview for your show last week. And for those of you that don't know Travis, he is the founder of Extra Pack of Peanuts, the podcast and blog. It's the #1 travel podcast on iTunes. And he teaches people how to travel for cheap or free, and very exciting stuff. He also does each year the Paradise Pack and runs Location Indie with Jason from Zero to Travel, I believe. And I want to try to ask questions that you haven't been asked before. So I'm just going to start off with, what travel trends are you seeing for 2017 or expecting for 2017?
I love that you're going to ask questions I haven't heard before. It kind of makes me nervous, too. Like, what are we going to get into? Which is great.
See, I don't know the questions, though, so then that's why they're unknown.
I'm an open book. So as far as travel trends for 2017, one of the things I've seen over the lifespan, I guess, that I've been in the travel world, and by that I mean podcasting and blogging, which has been since the beginning of 2012, is that fortunately I see a lot of Americans going to more off the beaten path places. And I don't know if this is simply because, you know, when you buy a new car, you get a car, and then all of a sudden, like, everyone has that same car. You see it on the road all the time. I don't know if it's because I'm more aware of it, or if it's just because the world is becoming smaller in a very good way. So for example, when I first went to Thailand in 2013, I didn't know anyone from my quote unquote regular life, like the life that I lived before I met all these other travelers and entrepreneurs who had gone to Thailand. So I was the first one of any friends or acquaintances that I had known. And it's not super exotic, but a lot of my friends in Philadelphia weren't ever thinking about Thailand. And then all of a sudden I remember coming back and people were saying, oh yeah, I'm going on my summer vacation to Thailand, this and that. And it was pretty cool. Now, whether I played a part in that and they saw pictures and made them want to go or what have you, I don't really know how big of a part I played, but I see a lot of people traveling looking for these off the beaten path places. And they become harder to find, of course, with the internet. You can pull up information on almost anywhere at this point. But I do see that being a trend of people wanting a little more authentic, a little more on the ground, close to the ground travel. And I especially saw this when I went to the country of Georgia, the Republic of Georgia, and I did that last summer. So that was in the summer of 2016. And I came back, and that was probably one of the more remote, off the beaten path places I had gone. I loved it. And I've started to see a lot of people say, like, yeah, I want to go there. I want to go there too. So I like that I see people expanding their horizons away from simply, all right, I'm going to go to Italy or Paris or Western Europe, or I'm going to head down in the Caribbean. It seems that people are able to get a little more far flung. And I think that's because airfare has gone down. I think that's because people are able to get more information on places. But it's a good trend and one that I like seeing.
Okay, where would be off the beaten path for you? Somewhere like Rwanda or
yeah, I mean,
Ukraine?
There's so many places. Yeah, so Eastern Europe, I've done a little bit in, and I love, and I'd like to go back there more and get, as you push kind of further east into Eastern Europe, it becomes more off the beaten path and less touristy. So I would love to kind of keep pushing my way out that way. Like you mentioned, Ukraine, areas like that. I was in Georgia. Georgia was fantastic. I would like to go into Kazakhstan and Mongolia, kind of those Central Asia areas that are a huge part of the world but don't really ever get talked about. Yeah. I would love to do that. And then for me, off the beaten path would also look like anywhere in Africa outside. I've been to South Africa, but outside of that, I haven't been anywhere. So, yeah, kind of getting into Central Africa would be really, really off the beaten path and pretty unique for me. And then, of course, one of my goals is to head down to Antarctica at some point, which then you're really – now we're talking not as far away and as remote as you can get. So that's what I would look to do a little bit.
Yeah. Do you see yourself as an explorer? We have this great tradition of, Europeans and North Americans being the intrepid explorers. How do you consider yourself?
I certainly don't see myself as an explorer. Now, if other people want to put me in that category, I will take it as praise. But and maybe this comes from Derek having a podcast and getting to interview people who do stuff way crazier than me and having quote unquote explorers on the show, people who have circumnavigated the globe using pedal power, and it took them 16 years. I mean, to me, that's an explorer. That's someone who's doing something really crazy. People have pulled sleds through the deserts of Iran and done some really, really cool, neat projects. To me, those are explorers. I think I feel personally like I'd be selling them short if I call myself an explorer. But it is all relative, right? There's people who will look at the travel that Heather, my wife, and I do and say, wow, that's really crazy. Like, I couldn't imagine doing that. So it's all relative. I don't consider myself an explorer. I consider myself a traveler. I certainly like independent travel. But I think in order for myself to be called an explorer, I'd have to have some sort of mission. Like, I'd have to say, all right, I'm going to bike across the U.S. And that's fairly commonplace, but something that is like a mission-oriented travel, whereas typically when we travel, it's to just get out and see places. And now I'm going to use the term explore, but that yes, but explore, but not with a mission-oriented goal, really.
Chris Guillebeau has the book about quests, and it's a great description of how to use a quest as a framework. Do you have a quest?
I wouldn't say that I necessarily have a very defined quest. And I think that is one thing that I would probably, if I was looking from an outside perspective and gave myself time to think about it, would be something that I think would help me going forward, is having a little bit more of a defined quest. I talk in a lot of generalities. I mean, one of the things we do in Location Indie, which is the community we run, is to help people become location independent. So that's probably the closest I would have to a quest, is saying, I've been able to become location independent. I have a job that I can work from anywhere, and it's great. And I could continue just to do that job, and, it would be great for my lifestyle. But to me, just as important is helping other people who kind of want to get out of that rut and who say, yeah, I don't like my 9-to-5, or maybe they're not even in a 9-to-5, but they don't like what they're doing and they'd like to have more adventure and more travel in their life and do work they love. that to me, I guess right now is my main goal. My main quest is help as many people, and we have a number to it. So I guess now it is kind of forming itself into a bit of a quest. But to have 1,000 people in our community that are all taking what they're doing, this 9 to 5, and shifting it 180 degrees and giving themselves the freedom, to me, that's more of my quest at this point. I don't have a travel quest like Chris, to visit every country in the world. I think that's cool. I don't begrudge anyone who does it, but I'm not interested in really doing that, especially not at this point in my life, because there's a lot of places I want to go back to. I want to travel slower and things like that.
Why do you want to help people go location independent?
To me, it was the biggest change that I ever made in my life in a positive way. It opened up doors that I never thought would exist. It gave me a lifestyle that I really honestly couldn't comprehend. And this sounds cliche, but when I was working as a high school teacher, I could have never comprehended how much I would love this lifestyle until I got here. I honestly, what story I tell, and this is so true, I remember being a high school teacher, and I'm here in Philadelphia. You work the typical 7:30 a.m. You get in and you leave school at 4 p.m. and maybe you have work to do afterwards. But a lot of times you're waking up in the dark or dawn, and then you're getting home at dark, especially during the winter months. And I remember one time, I think it was March or April, so it was starting to get nicer out, and I had a doctor's appointment, and I got to leave school on a half day to go to a doctor's appointment. I remember getting in my car at noon and thinking and driving this doctor's appointment, something that's not fun or that people want to do. But to me, it felt like freedom. I was like, I am outside at noon on a nice day. The sun is shining. I would typically be in the school for another 4 hours. It felt monumentous, and it was something so small. But to me, it was like, this is amazing. And so the fact that I get to do that every day, and I'll be the first one to tell you it's not easy to get here. And, I don't think that anyone can do it and they just snap their fingers and boom, it's this lifestyle that they can have. But to get to do it, to be there now and to get to be able to do it, I think that's probably the greatest gift I could give someone, because people who want out of that lifestyle, they know it. A lot of times they don't know how to get there, or they don't have people that can serve as role models or even just mentors to them. So things that I wish I had had when I first muddled my way through the first couple years of trying to figure it out. So if I can help them fast track that, that'd be awesome, because I remember what it was like to be in a regular job and just think, man, I'd do anything to get out of this. I just don't know how. So if someone knows how and they can provide that, I've always been someone who loves teaching and helping people, and sometimes maybe to a fault. I think everyone's as interested in something as I am. Maybe they're not. That's why I started a podcast, so you can listen to me if you want. If you want to turn me off, that's great. So it's just a gift, I think, that I can help people attain, and I know that a lot of people want it, and it would kind of be selfish of me not to help them do it and just say, haha, look at me, I'm able to do it, but then not offer a hand up.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm definitely right there with you. We've chatted about this as well. So maybe you could give us a run through of your business and the different aspects of it.
Yeah, for sure. And like I told you, I'll be the first person to openly admit that it's not easy to get here. And I don't want anyone to think that it is easy and that, it's always going to be successes and never failures, because that would be the wrong impression. And then when someone does hit a roadblock, they're probably going to quit. So I think being realistic, like you are about it, like I am about it, is one of the best services that we can offer people. So to give you a little bit of what I do now, and I'll back it up a tiny bit and kind of give you the story of how it came to be in a very condensed, very shortened version. But as I mentioned, I was a high school teacher, and then I moved to Japan because I wanted a new adventure. My wife and I moved to Japan, but we were still teaching, so we were still location dependent. It just happened to be in Japan where we were teaching. And at that point, I remember applying for a job at the international school in Rio de Janeiro, where my buddy was an English teacher, and he was basically like, hey, I can hook you up with a sweet job as a high school social studies teacher. You'll get paid like $65,000 a year. They'll give you a beach on Ipanema, blah, blah, blah. And I remember thinking, I have to sign a 2-year contract. Like, I don't know if I really want that. And it was at that moment when I realized, like, what are you going to do? If you don't want that, like that teaching gig, which is pretty much as good as it got for someone like me as a teacher, then you're going to have to figure out something else, because obviously teaching isn't in the cards for you. So I started my website, Extra Pack of Peanuts, in January 2012 while I was living in Japan. That gave me 8 months to when my contract ran out in Japan. I wasn't going to renew, to figure out how to make money on this blog, and I had no idea how I was going to do it. So that site, Extra Pack of Peanuts, still exists. It started teaching people how to use frequent flyer miles so that they could travel around the world for cheap or basically free. It still does that. That's still kind of the primary goal, but now we also have a podcast. We also talk about destinations. It's kind of a little more overarching now, but there's still the focus on travel more, spend less. So how can you make your dollars or your pounds or your euros or whatever it is go further and have more authentic travel experiences? So that's what we do at Extra Pack of Peanuts. We have a course called Frequent Flyer Boot Camp, so that we're actually redoing it now, so it's not for sale now, but when it is, that makes us some money. We do some affiliate sales, so if people buy this is a very small part of it, but travel insurance through us, we get a little bit of money. If they book hotels through us, a little bit of money. And those aren't the main goals. It's mostly, here's our course on how to use frequent flyer miles, because we control it. All the content's ours, so we can charge what we want, and that's great. The podcast is sponsored, so that's cool too, with a company that we've always had a really good working relationship with. And that's kind of that part of it. So that's the travel site. And that has been going strong. Now it's, wow, crazy to think, 5 years ago. So that's,
wow, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I always think I'm new to it until you actually, so 5 years, that's been going strong. It grows and grows a little bit every year. And then the two other things that we do, that I do with a business partner, Jason from Zero to Travel, as you mentioned, we run a community. Well, the first thing we did was called the Paradise Pack, and it is a sale of products. It's like online information products on how you can travel, live, and work anywhere in the world. So it's some products about traveling more efficiently or cheaper, so like my Frequent Flyer Boot Camp, or someone else's stuff on like learning languages, like Benny Lewis from Fluent in 3 months, stuff like that. And then the other part of it is like how to start or grow an online business so that you can do both. So that we're giving you this location-independent lifestyle. So that runs once a year, 7-day sale only, all new products every year, and it's like a super discounted thing where you get like 90% off it. So it's like a flash sale, basically, on awesome information products to become location-independent. So we do that once a year, and then what we do on the back end of that is people get the information, and then we have a community. So if people say, hey, this is great that I have all the resources that are going to teach me this, but hey, I want to find someone who's doing it, or I want to team up with people, or no one in my real life gets me because they think I'm crazy for wanting to leave a job and go move to Thailand and travel the world. We say, well, here's a community. Right now we've got about 400 people in there. Again, the goal is to build it to 1,000 by the end of 2017 and then 5,000 by the end of 2018. But the goal there is to have this large community of people all wanting this lifestyle and all at different levels of it, to like mentor each other or work together or collaborate. And so that's been a big push of ours in the last year is build that community, because remote work isn't going anywhere. It's only getting bigger and bigger. This idea that you can be location independent and digital nomad is kind of starting to take hold mainstream, which is great. And so we want to be at the forefront of that, continuing to help people out and to push that forward. So those are the three big things that we do. There's a lot of other mini projects and stuff going on behind the scenes, but those are the three main things that we do with the Extra Pack of Peanuts travel site, the Paradise Pack once a year sale, and then the Location Indie ongoing community for people.
And is there any one that's the majority of your income?
I would say it would be great. Now I have an accountant, so at the end of 2017, I could actually really look this up and give you the exact numbers. Before that, you know how it is when you start a business. You're like, oh my gosh, it's working a little bit. Now it's working enough to get an accountant because we have to figure this out. Rough numbers, I would say the Paradise Pack, that's a 1 week sale, but it's a lot of work, even though it's only available for 1 week. That roughly, let's say 50% of our income a year, probably a little bit under, but let's say 50 for sake of numbers. Then Extra Pack of Peanuts is probably 40%, and that has like 6 or 7 different revenue streams. So podcast sponsorship, credit card affiliates, people buying backpacks. That comes from a bunch of different
Yeah.
areas, but that's probably 40%. And then the location indie community is about 10%. And that's because we only let in 150 members up until like a couple weeks ago when we opened the doors again, and now we're at 400. We only let 150 people in, or 200 people in, I think, for the first 2 years, because we wanted it really small and we wanted to make sure it didn't grow too big before we kind of knew what was going on. So
Yeah.
the goal is to ratchet that up and have that kind of take over as one of the main drivers, and everything else be icing on the cake.
And you have opportunity to get insight because you have this group of people. So what are people really interested in terms of location independent business, and what trends are you seeing people take advantage of?
It seems like a lot of times people fall into a few groups when they come to us in terms of location independent. You have the people who are younger. There's a few right out of college, but a lot of people have come and maybe done a couple years in the workforce and just think, no way, this is not what I want to do. And so they come to us because they think that, they want to do a different way. So you get people who are younger. Usually they're not exactly sure what they want to do. They just know that they want to make this lifestyle happen no matter what. You also get people who are coming not mid-career, but who have spent a significant amount of time in a workforce and have a skill. Maybe they've been a graphic designer that's been employed by a certain company for a long time, or they've kind of climbed the corporate ladder a bit, and they have like certain skill set, and they just think, all right, I want to get out of this. I want to start freelancing, or I just want to get out completely. Then you have people who have come who kind of fall in this third category, who have already built location independent businesses, some of them in the millions and multi-million dollars, but they don't have a kind of a group. They've been able to do it on their own, which is very, very, very difficult. And they've gotten to a point where they think, I just want to surround myself with other people who are doing this and who we can all like band together and have positive influence on each other. So you see those three different groups of people kind of come into location indie. As far as the trends in location independence, if I was to point to a few ways, and obviously we get this question a lot, people joining who don't exactly know what they want to do, or maybe they don't think they have a skill that's marketable right away. So they're not a graphic designer who's already been doing freelance work, who's looking to add more customers and clients, but they know, all right, I want to do graphic design. They come and they're like, well, I've worked a few years. I don't know what I want to do. I want something to set me free. I don't even really care what it is exactly. Like, it doesn't have to be a passion project of mine. It's just, I want to do something different that gives me freedom. Two really big things that I see as awesome opportunities. One is we have kind of a subgroup in location indie of people who are buying and selling stuff on Amazon. This is a really good way to kind of get your feet wet, to make a ton of money. The other benefit, you don't have to have any degree or any certification or anything like that. This idea of buying products, and I won't get too nerdy into it, but you basically buy products from other stores and online. Maybe let's say Target is selling a blanket for $20 because it has all these discounts, and then you go and resell it eventually on Amazon for $40. The reason it can be location independent now is because Amazon's so big and so crazy, is that you don't actually get this stuff shipped to your house and then you hold it and then package it up and send it to someone when they buy it on Amazon. You buy it, it gets sent to a center, that then it gets packaged up, it gets sent to Amazon, and then Amazon ships it out whenever someone buys it. So you literally hold no product. You can do everything online. So that is a huge, huge opportunity that we have seen a lot of people inside of location indie take advantage of and do very, very, very well. And it's called, Amazon FBA, which means fulfillment by Amazon. And that's just in the last 2 years, it's become a lot easier to do. It used to be people having like pallets of Barbie dolls at their house in their garage and then having to pack it up. So it's like you were kind of like doing your own business, but you weren't really having much freedom. Now, because Amazon has their big storehouses and they'll handle it all, now you can actually do that. So that's why that's taken off. And it's kind of in its infancy. A lot of competition now, but people are really doing a good job of it. And if you learn how to do it, you can do it from anywhere. And the other thing that I see as an incredible opportunity is running Facebook ads. Again, it's not super difficult to learn that. I taught myself, and I don't by any means know everything about it, but enough to run our own Facebook ads and understand how it works and do really well with it. And so I think that's an opportunity for people who come in who are either they like marketing, they like analytics, they like to dive in and and see what works. It's a really great opportunity because 95% of people aren't going to want to do it because they think it's going to be too hard. The reality is once you learn maybe 3 hours worth of Facebook ads, you can do some really cool stuff. And if you go to a small business owner who has no idea about Facebook ads and you say, hey, let me run these ads for you, we'll spend a little bit and you can show them the return on investment right away. It's just an incredible market. And you can charge quite a lot of money because if you're making them money and you show them exactly how much you're making them, they know how much you're worth right off the bat. So I see that as a really, really cool opportunity that if I wasn't doing other things, I would certainly take people up on it. I would learn Facebook ads in a couple hours. I would continue to learn them and get better and better and better. But you can start right out of the gate and, maybe even take a portion of profit. So you don't take any money up front. You just say, all right, if you make more money, I get a portion of this. So who's not going to take you up on that then at that point?
Sure. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Those are two that I really hadn't thought of. So excellent. And I never think about physical products really. Some people they're creating like art and having them made in villages in the developing world and selling them. That's sort of when I think of physical products, but then there's the whole buying and selling it seems sort of, I don't know, you can generate income, but it also seems sort of pointless as well.
I wouldn't want to do it as a passion, right? I had one guy actually tell me, we were talking about Amazon FBA, and he's like, yeah, well, Trav, but that seems like I'm trading one grind for another. And I said, you're right. Like you're trading one job for another, but the beauty of it is, and all the people in there that are doing Amazon FBA, I don't see any of them getting super, you get super excited because it's kind of like a game, right? It's like how people get excited about the stock market or real estate. You're finding value, and I'm a nerd about that. So I always want to find value and find good deals. So that's the part that gets me excited. It doesn't get me excited that, and I don't do it, but if I was doing it, it wouldn't get me excited to sell Barbie dolls or anything like that. And you're not really helping the world in a certain way, right? It's not like a mission or a quest like we talked about earlier. But what it does do is it allows you to have a lifestyle that you want that then you can go and do other things. And so usually it's when people come in, they get really into this Amazon FBA because it's going to allow them to do something else. So if they start doing it and they do okay and it allows them to leave their job and go travel, well, yeah, maybe they're not super excited about Amazon, but what are they excited about? They're excited about the fact that now they can travel the world and have this freedom. Or, okay, they have this Amazon thing and it's going pretty well and they outsource it and they're working 10 hours a week. Now 30 hours a week or however many hours they want, they can devote to something that is a passion project. Maybe they're a photographer. So now all of a sudden they have opened up all this time in their schedule to really make a go of being a photographer or a musician. So it usually is a means to an end. Like some of the stuff is a means to an end. And I see the Amazon stuff as a means to an end of either leaving your job or allowing yourself kind of the freedom financially and time-wise to actually pursue other things that maybe you wouldn't be able to do if you had like a regular 9-to-5.
Yeah. So you are a history teacher, high school history, and I'm curious what role that plays in the work you do and what you consider to be your zone of genius.
Being a history teacher, I remember sitting there talking to a buddy of mine who did heating and air conditioning. It did HVAC stuff. And I remember specifically sitting there one time and saying, I'm just a teacher. I don't really have any skills. If I need like my heater fixed or my air conditioning breaks, I'll call you up and you can come and fix it. And what can I do for you? You have a kid and I can sit there and teach him about like the French Revolution, which honestly I didn't know much about. And I was always reading the textbook like just ahead of the kids. I liked history, but I didn't love it. I wasn't a history buff by any means. I prefer like actually current events and current history and stuff like that. All the stuff that you never even get to by the end of the year. It's like, oh yeah, we're only in like the 1890s and it's June. All right. By the way, the last century happened and that's
look it up.
Yeah. Right. So I never even got to teach the stuff that I really liked. So, I remember specifically sitting there with my friend John telling him that. And he was like, no, man, it's fine. Like what you're doing is great. And this is when I just started my businesses and I didn't know if they were going to take off. And I just was feeling this idea of I have no skills. Like I don't have any skills that actually can attribute itself to something in the long run. And what I didn't realize at the time and what I do realize now is one of the really big benefit. So when I started teaching people about frequent flyer miles, again, I didn't know that learning about frequent flyer miles would open a door to everything that I do now. That was the first thing I did. I just learned about them because I wanted to travel cheap. I heard that somehow you could get frequent flyer miles without flying, and I thought, no way, this is too good to be true. This is impossible. But then I saw a few people like Chris Guillebeau, who you mentioned, and a few other people on the internet who are actually doing it. And I thought, well, I might as well give it a shot, right? It can't hurt to give it a shot. And then I started learning about it. And what I realized was no one was actually teaching this. It was all people who were doing it, and they had been doing it for years, and they were super nerdy. And it was literally like they were talking in code. I had to learn what I consider a second language, because you go into these forums and you look at it and be like AAPHL-DCA 4.2 CPM, and you're like, what are they talking about? Like, I don't understand any of that. Okay, then I had to understand, like, AA is American Airlines, PHL is Philadelphia Airport, 4.2 CPM means cents per mile, so it means it's a good deal, But when you're first starting, it's like hieroglyphics. So I realized that, and I nerded out, and I spent about 6 months figuring this out. And it took me that long just to get my feet under me and to give this frequent flyer mile thing a shot. And then, of course, when I figured it out, I started telling everyone I know. Like I said, I get really obsessed with stuff and nerd out on it and want everyone to do it as well. So I was telling my friends and family, and some of them were receptive, and some were like, Trav, what are you talking about? Like, is this a scheme? Like, what are you trying to talk us into? But what I realized then, as I was doing this, and then I started my website about 6 months after I learned about it, was that my real skill and one of my zones of genius came from my ability to teach. So again, everyone was writing all this information. It was out there for people to figure out. But the problem was they had to figure it out. And it was going to take them, like me, 6 months to figure it out. So when I started Extra Pack of Peanuts, my goal was not that I was breaking any new news or I was figuring out this loophole that no one else had found out. It was that I was taking this loophole that some of these people knew about, but were talking about at a high level, breaking it down and saying, if you're a beginner, this is how you do it step by step by step. And I didn't even at first realize that I was doing it that way until like a couple months in, and I thought, and that's just how I like to learn, like step one, do this.
Yes.
So I was making it really simple because I was just learning it as I went along as well. So I was making it simple for myself because I didn't have the beauty and sometimes the curse of knowing all of it. So I was like writing it down, step one, step two, step three, so that I could remember how I actually booked a ticket on United when I had to do it again. And then I was realizing, wait, the way I'm doing this, other people are really resonating with. And that's why the site kind of grew, was that we were the first site to really teach people how to use frequent flyer miles versus just tell them it's possible and kind of give them the big overview. I was breaking everything down step by step by step really simply. And so that I realized then all of a sudden was this zone of genius that I had, was taking stuff that might be pretty complex, at least certainly was complex to a beginner, breaking it down and making it simple to understand. And I've since taken that skill and then used it in other ways. Frequent flyer miles, obviously, then, starting an online business and kind of dispelling the myths behind that and saying, all right, if you're at square one, here's where you go. We just bought some Airbnb properties, and that's like another thing that I think people get turned off of because it's this huge idea and seems really scary, and it was to me also. And then I just started breaking it down, like what would be my first step, what would be my second step. And so I don't know if I'll ever make a course about it. I want to, whether I have enough time or not, I don't know. But the same idea I implement for myself is like step by step by step, how can I do it? So I see that as a little bit of my zone of genius, is teaching skills. And again, I think that came from me being a teacher before and me also understanding how I learned, even if when I was doing it at first, I didn't see that when I was first doing it. So that's a zone of genius. And my obsessive nature, I think, helps, because when I like something, I'm going to figure it all out. I'm going to get to the very bottom and dive through the minutia so that other people don't have to.
Brilliant. Yeah, I can totally relate to losing myself in something for years or even decades. And a quick sidebar for people that are interested in Airbnb until Travis creates his course. My friend Jasper Ribbers, who's been on the show, has a podcast called Get Paid for Your Pad, which is quite useful. And he's got a book about Airbnb investing as well.
And he was one of the first people that got me again, a lot of times I think people want to do stuff, but the hardest part is just seeing someone else do it, like understanding that someone that they know, or even if they don't know them, like I don't know Jasper that well. We've talked on the phone or on Skype once, but seeing him do it constantly and then seeing how he does it gave me the motivation, and he probably doesn't even know that. And we haven't talked since I bought properties, but he's not even aware of it, but he gave me the motivation to do it because I thought, all right, he's a normal guy. He's just talking about what he did. There's no he didn't fall into a ton of money, and he's not no offense to him, but super duper smart and understanding this thing. It's I'm doing it as a normal person. Here's how I did it. Here's how it works. And he does a really good job, exactly like we were talking about, simplifying everything down. And that helped me pull the trigger and then, take it and run with it.
Cool. I want to get into some travel stories and things. And I was just browsing through your social media and saw that you buy chocolates for flight attendants. And I really love that. And maybe you could just tell me where that started, how you...
So I called it the $7 business class upgrade. And that's because on my last long haul flight, we were coming back from England, and then we had to stop over in Portugal, and then we were coming back to New York. So it was going to be, international flight. It was about 7 hours. And my wife and I had this idea, and I can't take full credit for this because I heard this from another travel blogger called Johnny Jett when he came on my podcast maybe 3 years ago. He said, you know what I do, and it's a really good idea, and it gets me upgrades sometimes and stuff like that, is I just buy chocolate for the flight attendants. And his wife was a former flight attendant, so he started doing it because, he heard all the horror stories and all the stuff that they had to put up with. And, even if you've just flown a few times, that they have to put up with a lot of crap. So he was just telling me, I buy chocolate for flight attendants, and sometimes I get upgraded, and sometimes I get special treatment. And I thought, that's really cool. And so Heather and I started implementing that. Anytime we were going anywhere that was, you could do it if you were going on a 1 hour flight, but typically we do it for a little bit longer haul flights.
Yeah.
And I'll say that we've probably done it about 10 times now, and we never got upgraded until this last time. So when I say $7, let's times it by 10. It probably cost us $100 all told in chocolates. But what was really cool, is I never expect to get upgraded. It's more that now we do it, and I just love doing it because it costs me $7 or $10 or what have you. And come on the plane. It's really, everyone kept asking me, what's the secret? Break down the process. And I literally was all right, I'll break it down, but it's very simple. Buy chocolates that are somewhat nice, like Ferrero Rocher or Lindt.
Something you buy them at the airport?
Yeah, sometimes I pick them up on the way there at a convenience store if I see them and I know we're traveling the next day, I might grab them. But usually it's the day of. And, you buy enough. I actually asked the flight attendant after that $7 business class upgrade, went a little mini viral on social media. A few flight attendants were like, thanks for spreading the word, because I was telling other people to do it. And I asked them, how many flight attendants are there? Is there a minimum amount of pieces we should buy? Because that is something I didn't know. And they're like, yeah, if you buy more than 12, it should be fine. Everyone could have at least one. So regardless, you buy chocolate, make sure it's over 12, get something fairly decent that everyone loves. And then when you walk on the, I haven't figured out, maybe I should do this of who exactly to give it to. But all I do is when I walk on the plane, I hand it, the two people who are there checking your tickets and telling you which aisle to go down and stuff like that. I just hand it to one of them and I say, hey, we travel quite a bit. We have a few friends who are flight attendants. We know that you have to put up with a lot of stuff. Here's just a little gift from my wife and I. We just want to say thank you for taking care of us today. We really appreciate it. And that's it. And then, a lot of times oh, thank you so much. Only one time was it a little awkward. I was on an Air India, and I don't know what I said, but it seemed like it got a little lost in translation. And the lady was kind of looking at me, and I don't know if she thought it. I don't know what she was thinking, but I kind of had to scurry away because I just gave them to her, and there was no real response, just that kind of leering look. And then I just
no one's ever given her anything.
Yeah, right. I don't know if it was just utter shock or if she was unsure what exactly was happening. Regardless, 9 times out of 10, it's been really great. And so, people have come back and said thank you. Or they've sent other flight attendants back. Oh, thank you so much, this and that. They've, sent us up to the bulkhead seats with more leg room. They've moved us from a center seat to the aisle. The one guy just was really excited. and just kept bringing. He's like, "Do you want liquor?" And I was traveling with my parents actually on a long haul flight from Norway, or to Norway, and he's like, do you guys want some alcohol? And I'm like, no. And I don't usually drink when I fly because I actually don't really like flying, and I kind of get sick sometimes.
Dehydration
like,
too, yeah.
Yeah, and I just don't like, I'm not going to like ply myself with alcohol. I'm going to feel crappy when I land. So Heather was like, yeah, I'll have a little thing of wine. My dad was like, yeah, great. So like, and this guy wouldn't let me say no. I'm like, no, he's like, well, if you were to have any liquor, what would it be? I'm like, I'll take a gin and tonic. He brings out like 5 of those little bottles of Bombay, puts them like in the seat next to me. He's like, here you go, man. He just kept bringing liquor. I mean, I'd hold up the 4 bottles, be like, I had one, I'm done. Just kept bringing it around, talk to us. My dad was loving it. My mom, Heather, were loving it. So we've gotten different perks each time, and everyone's been really appreciative. We've had the captain come back and just say thank you, cool stuff. And then this last time, I gave it to a lady. She seemed pretty gregarious. Like I do make sure I look for the person who looks the nicest when I walk in. There's usually 2 of them there. So I'm like, who looks the nicest and most fun? And I gave it to this lady, and she was super nice about it. And we went back, and then she came back and she's like, are you traveling alone? I said, no, I'm here with my wife. She's like, okay, come with me. And I'm like, should I bring my stuff? She's like, yeah, you should bring your stuff. So yeah, she trots us up to the front of the plane. We're in business class. 2 of the other flight attendants came over. We're like, we just want to say thank you. I'm the head, whatever they call the head flight attendant. And they just hooked it up. And we got this, 7 hours of business class, great food, live flat beds. It was awesome. So it's a really simple hack. People are like, are you worried that now everyone's going to do it? I'm like, no. If the 1,000 or 10,000 people who listen to us on our podcast do it, like that's a small percentage, and I think it'd make flight attendants' lives a lot better. So that's it. The only other part of that, the only other thing that I tell people is if you're going to do it, if you want a chance to get upgraded, if you don't care at all, no big deal. If you just want to be nice, I just make sure I wear somewhat nice of clothing. You don't have to be in a suit or anything, but if you come on and you're wearing like raggedy clothes, they might be a little hesitant to throw you up in business class because, some of those people have paid for flights up there and it's more expensive. So dress a little nice, throw on something decent, and you might have a good shot. And if not, you've done something nice for someone.
Do you travel with a blazer?
I do now, and I was wearing that blazer when I got upgraded, and that was the only difference between when I haven't got upgraded and when I did, so that could have been the key. A friend of mine named Stefan Lobel runs a company called Bluffworks, and I never carried a blazer. I never wear a blazer in real life. I hate wearing suits. One of the best things is I can wake up and wear a T-shirt and like sweatpants or shorts every day.
I don't even know if you're wearing pants right now.
That's right. Maybe not. But he created this travel blazer, and my wife is really into fashion, had always wanted me to bring a blazer, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to give this a shot because the pants that he created, Bluffworks chinos, are the only pants that I wear. They're awesome. They're the perfect travel pant. And so he created this blazer. It's wrinkle-free. It's awesome. So I got it. He sent me one. I started wearing it, and I love it. And I called it like the hoodie slayer because I always used to wear a hoodie. Now I'm like, well, this is kind of the same, but it makes me look a lot nicer. Still keeps me warm.
Yeah.
You can wear it with everything. It's not like super formal. Wrinkle-free, man. I throw it in my bag. You can literally crumple it up, and it doesn't wrinkle. You can wring it out, so it's pretty. It's not waterproof, obviously, but it dries very quick. It's incredible. And so now I travel with the blazer, and I wore it, and I got upgraded. So
yes, that's exactly what I need.
1 for 1 so far. 1 for 1. So yeah, the company's called Bluffworks. 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 They have awesome chinos that are, again, wrinkle-free, pretty much stain-proof, fairly waterproof. I wear them every day, all day. I've had them for like 2 years, and they look brand new. So
perfect.
Great travel clothing.
Yeah. Okay, I want to make this not necessarily a lightning round, but just some quick things I wanted to ask you about. Do you have a music playlist, a travel music that you like to listen to?
I do not. Usually my wife is in charge of the music, and I do have an artist that I love if you want to chill out, though, and I listen to him when I'm working, so I know it's not the same thing. When I'm working, his name is Gregory Alan Isakov, singer-songwriter, really, really good dude. Well, I don't know if he's a good dude, but really, really good musician. I love his stuff. It's really mellow, so whenever I'm working and I need to kind of get in the zone, that's what I throw on.
Awesome. And what would you say is the crappiest place you've ever stayed?
I have 2. I'll give them to you quick. One is no longer there in Chiang Mai. I actually looked for it. it's gone. The Mojito House. The second hostel I ever stayed in, it was a $2 a night private room. So my wife and I were taking our first backpacking trip. So the first one we ever stayed in was in Kuala Lumpur, like a few days before. And then we went up, we stayed in Chiang Mai. I'm like, oh, this gets great reviews. $2 a night or $3 a night for a private room. It was great. Or so I thought. We walk in. I don't know where the dorms are, but we have to walk up the stairs, and we're literally climbing over people in sleeping bags on the like landing between the first and second floor.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, okay, that's a little weird. I don't know. Maybe they got kicked out of their other place. I don't know, something going on. I'm like, why are people sleeping there? She's like, oh, that's the shared accommodations. So that was like the dorm, this landing on a set of stairs. We walk into ours, and there are literally springs popping out of the bed, like a cartoon. This is no joke. Springs popping out of the bed, stains all over the sheets. We have a shower in there that doesn't work, and you would never want to walk on the tile anyway. It was disgusting. It was my second hostel experience. So I didn't know what to do. We had paid for like 3 nights in advance, so we slept there that night, and then my wife forced us to move. I probably would have slept there again, not because I wanted to or felt clean, but because I kind of felt bad of leaving. I didn't.
Yeah.
I just felt bad. I'm like, I don't want to tell them their place is disgusting. So we snuck out and we went to another place that was an 10 night, but literally 50 times better. And then I stayed in a place in Myanmar, in Yangon, and Myanmar is awesome. It's like Thailand 30 years ago. It's also like Thailand 30 years ago when it comes to accommodation. So you're either staying at the Shangri-La, which was right by where we were staying, which is like $200, $250 a night, or you're paying like twice as much as you would pay in other parts of Southeast Asia for accommodations that are twice as bad because they just don't have as much of a tourist pass, so they don't have the need for these like really awesome guest houses like you get in Thailand and Vietnam and Cambodia and Laos. So it was disgusting, and I also got really, really sick from something I ate, so I spent 24 hours in this like mold-infested flop house, and I didn't want to be outside because I was like throwing up and going to the bathroom. Spare the details, but like every 2 minutes, so I couldn't go anywhere. But then being in this disgusting room, I think was making me feel worse. So it was like I wasn't going to win either
Downward
way. I just
spiral.
let it. It was It was awful. Yeah, it was a flop house in every sense of the word.
Wow. That was great. I'm glad I asked you those questions about that.
It was called Cherry Guest House in Yangon. I try to put it out of my memory, but don't stay there. If you see anything like Cherry something in Yangon, don't go.
I've got a couple questions, Travis, that I ask all of my guests. One is, if you could change or add something to the world, what would you want the world to have?
Wow. I think... I could look big picture and kind of say something cool like, I want to have world peace, which would be great. Obviously, I would love for people to be able to have freedom like we talked about. I think we spend way too much time working and doing things we don't enjoy or that we wouldn't do if we had choices. So I would love for people, and maybe that's my answer, for people to do what they want to do rather than doing what they have to do. But that could go for people in America who are stuck in a cubicle. That could go for people in developing countries who, honestly, every day it's a struggle to survive and to find food. And, you have people there who could be incredible artists, musicians, scientists, stuff like that, who never get an opportunity. Mm-hmm. So if there was a way to do something like that for people to say, I just want more time for my passion or my skill set and to really put that to use, the stuff people could create, it would be, we don't even understand what it would be like. So that would be something that I'd love. I have no idea how it would ever work or be implemented, but that'd be cool. I also think a teleportation machine would be pretty sweet. Although then it would take away from the cool parts of travel, which is a lot of the times the hassle of getting places and taking 30-hour bus rides and stuff like that. A teleportation machine would be cool, but I think we'd lose a little bit of the element of travel as well. So I'm not sold if I'm going to actually invent a teleportation machine or not. I'm only holding back because I'm afraid that it'll make travel too easy.
And make sure you buy chocolates for your teleportation operator.
Right. So he sends you to the right place, right?
Yeah. You arrive wearing all kinds of bling. He's like, I just added a little bit extra. Final question. What is your definition of adventure?
For me, I think adventure is anything that pushes me out of my comfort zone, and you probably get that a lot, and that's very, very cliche, But I think that what people forget about comfort zones is that for each person, they're completely, completely different. And we talked about whether, we were explorers before this. And I don't consider myself an explorer because I've never done anything crazy that friends and acquaintances I know have done. And yet I've done stuff that people would look at and say, like, there's no way I'm going to the Republic of Georgia because, like, that's no way. Like, I'm going to go to Italy, which is cool. And then there's people who say, I'm afraid. I had a friend who did this. He was afraid to basically get on an airplane. And he was a good friend of mine, and we were obviously leading very different lives because he just hated flying. He'd always get scared. He had this fear of flying. Whenever he had to fly, and this was like a few times in his life, he got like ridiculously drunk just to like be able to pass out. He's like, I hate doing it, but I can't do anything else. And so for him, getting out of his comfort zone was taking a trip out to Colorado. I was like, there's something was going on in Colorado conference. So I'm like, dude, come out to this conference in Colorado. It's like, I can't. I'm going to drive out. And then like he decided to fly out actually. And now he lives in Boulder, Colorado. And for him to uproot his life from New Jersey, this regular like suburban life in New Jersey, to live out in Boulder, Colorado. I mean, he's like the biggest Boulderite ever now. He has a whole Colorado room. He's got like the flag up. He's got like artwork by local Colorado artists. I mean, this kid is never, ever coming back from Colorado. And for him, that was, for me, moving to Colorado wouldn't really be that big of a deal. Like it'd be cool, but it wouldn't. For him, it was the biggest thing he could think of doing. And he did it. And so I think that that's the thing that gets lost is that people look at it from a perspective of, hey, we're all on the same playing field. And yeah, this person went and hiked the Appalachian Trail for 3 months and that's adventure, but there's no way I'm going to do it. Well, maybe for them, adventure is taking their first flight. Or maybe for them, it's saying, all right, I went to Italy last year and that was really cool. Now I'm going to like pop over to Croatia. It's a little more off the beaten path. And then they're like, now I'm going to go over to Sarajevo and that's a little more. And then so that's what adventure looks to me is whatever it is that's giving you a bit of pause. And it doesn't have to be right off the bat you take this leap and do something really crazy. But whatever is giving you a little bit of pause to look at that and then try to figure out a way to push yourself to do that. And what's going to happen is then like you're going to think, well, that was really cool. And then so the next time you do something, you're going to go further and further and further. And it's like a snowball. And then eventually you'll be out, pushing sleds through the desert of Iran or taking a trip down to Antarctica or something crazy, but you don't usually get there all at once. I know very few travelers who just say, I've never done anything in my life. I'm going to get dropped off in the middle of China and it's going to be fine. Most people take smaller steps to get there.
They say all roads lead to Antarctica. Eventually, you'll just keep pushing yourself and you'll wind up on a sled in Antarctica.
That's right. Hopefully, I end up there with you. I have not done that. Then maybe I could call myself an explorer. Although I'd probably have to kayak there, or do something. I couldn't just take a regular ship of someone driving.
We'd have to swim there. Yeah,
swim there or helicopter in and then snowshoe for 4 days.
All right, let's plan it. And Travis, where can people find you online should you wish to be found?
I do wish to be found. The more, the merrier when it comes to traveling and creating your own lifestyle and giving yourself freedom. So you can find me a bunch of places. The easiest is going to be extrapackofpeanuts.com. That's our travel website. That's kind of our flagship thing that has existed, as we talked about, since 2012. On Twitter and Instagram, also at Pack of Peanuts. So one of the cool things that I love about social media is that we don't post all the time on Extra Pack of Peanuts anymore. We just do so much traveling that it's hard to catch up. And, there's I have books of notes that are still written by hand that will probably never make it online. But what we've been doing, and my wife's great at this, is doing a ton more on social media. So when we do travel, people can easily follow along and interacting that way. So Instagram is a big one that we use. So at Pack of Peanuts there. And if you are interested in then what we see, the reason we started a community was people travel and they love it and they don't have to spend a lot of money. And they're like, this is great, but I have to come home to my real job. Wait, why can Derek do this? Why can Travis do this? Don't they ever have to come back to work? If you're someone who's like, yeah, I want that lifestyle where I can work from anywhere and be location independent, you can find the stuff that we do there at locationindie, INDIE.com, and hop on the newsletter and you'll get a ton of free goodies and stuff like that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to chat. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. And let's try to get a little group trip to Antarctica here then. We can all call ourselves explorers.
Perfect.
Cheers.
All right, another great episode with Travis Sherry. Hope you enjoyed that one. He makes travel seem so easy, and, well, he's a good teacher, so that makes sense. Make sure to send him a thank you if you enjoyed the show on Twitter. That'll be linked up in the show notes. If you want to connect with me, I love posting photos on Instagram. That's the best place to see where in the world we are. And I post a lot of travel stories along with the photos that don't make it onto the show. And I'll have an episode on Extra Pack of Peanuts coming out about the same time as this show, where Travis interviews me. So make sure you check that out as well. In addition to hosting the podcast, my favorite part of my job is helping other people create businesses that give them the freedom to travel the world as well, so that I have friends to join me in all these adventures, and so that they can meet cool people, see interesting things, spend time with their family, or just sleep in. So if you want to get started on your own location-independent business, just drop me a line, derek@derekloudermilk.com. That's my email. I'll send you a link to my calendar, and you can book your free 30-minute strategy session with me. That's all for this episode. Now it's your turn to go out there and be adventurous.